All right. And next up, we have refined substance. We're going to talk about changing the perceptions of mining to ensure its future success. So we're switching gears here a little bit, I guess, with the bridge from Catherine's conversation, where she was saying that you can use language to communicate with external officials and stakeholders across different language environments as well. Our next guest, Kimberly Darlington, she is a PR expert. So she's got 25 years of experience in communications, PR, investor relations, marketing. She's a board member and a certified board candidate, a CDID. She is also fully bilingual. So I guess there's another bridge from our previous chat here. And she leads a team of 5 as part of her organization called Refined Substance. And they are dedicated to partnering with mining companies to help them sort of revitalize their image or put their best foot forward, maybe debunking some ideas that people might have or some assumptions that they might be making about the mining industry. So I'm really excited. Kimberly, I know that you also have a very busy schedule and a busy day. Really thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, how you ended up serving the mining industry and some of the impact that you're most proud of in this sort of greater quest to shape public perceptions of mining.
Bonjour, everybody. Thank you so much, Erica, for the introduction. And thanks, everyone, for being here. I'm really honored to be able to join you today and talk a little bit about refined substance and what we do. So we call it refined substance because we take the substance of what companies, generally junior mining companies, but we're quite open to most things connected to mining. We take the substance of what they're trying to say and refine it so that the target audience, whether it's a community, whether it's investors, whether it's media, whether it's the public, potential employees, current employees even, so that they can understand it and have the right takeaways from the stories that the companies are trying to tell. And I'm really passionate about this because when I started this company 12 years ago, when my daughter was quite young, and she came home from school one day and said, "Oh, Mom, the teacher says mining is evil and is going to destroy our planet." And I
Oh,
thought, how interesting. I'm sure the teacher enjoys, driving their car and using their phone and all the things that, as we all know, are not grown, they are mined. So we dug a little bit deeper into that. My husband also works in the industry, so he was quite perturbed by that comment as well, and realized that there's a huge perception problem in the general public, and particularly among younger generations. They don't see a lot of mines, right? Because a lot of people live in cities. I live in Montreal, and they don't have a mine site nearby, so they don't know what it is. They don't know the opportunities that it can provide. And most importantly, they don't really understand how far we've come as an industry. I mean, mining is an old industry, one of the oldest, but the technology and the way that we do things today in such a responsible way is something that people just don't understand. And not only do we need mining, and once they explain to them where metals come from, which it should be obvious, but not clearly, they also need to understand that we actually, particularly here in Canada, do an amazing job of mining responsibly, with a keen eye on the environment, on sustainability, on governance, on treating employees well. So these are stories that need to get out there and need to get told.
yeah, absolutely. And I just love that as a bit of a snapshot of where we've come from. Maybe blame the movie Avatar for having that kind of caricature of the mining people, the characters in the movie that are after this unobtainium, I think it's called, right? That they're those minerals above all else, and they're looking to exploit and kind of destroy everybody else. And that is a perception that's out there about the mining industry. And I love your point that we need to tell more up-to-date stories about the mining industries, highlighting some of the positive impacts that have happened, and also to really get at this maybe lack of understanding or just not quite connecting the dots between the phone and the car and the things that we have around us that we count on, and the mining industry. So really sort of making sure that people understand that connection and are maybe willing to give up some of their sort of polarized views around mining in favor of a more nuanced approach that says that there are impacts. We want to mitigate them. We want to manage them properly. And here's how we're doing that to make it more successful.
Exactly.
Do you have a success story that you can share with us? Of course, we don't expect you to give us any confidential details, but just an example maybe of where you and your team have been able to work with a mining company to do this successfully. I mean, how do you know when you're winning at something as sort of nebulous as perception?
Well, I don't know if you ever know if you're winning, but you can know if you're losing. Maybe you can
Aha.
deal with opposition and whatnot. So one of the reasons that my company does, you can find a lot of companies that do IR. There's companies that do community relations. There's companies, but we like to do it all in house if we can, because the messages need to be consistent. Right. So whether you're a worker, a geologist, exploring, and you go into the grocery store and start talking about what you're doing, you should be, you might say it a different way, but you want to say the same key messages. What are we doing here? Why are we doing it? What stage are we at in the process? And those messages, as I say, could be delivered differently depending on where you are and who you're talking to. But the key messages need to be consistent, because you say, oh, we're going to say one thing to investors, we're going to say something else to the community or to employees. Well, guess what? Investors can be anybody these days. So you have to be consistent. You might have a level of detail that differs between communications methods, but need to be consistent.
Yeah.
So in the case of one of our clients, Osisko Metals, they have a copper project that's actually a past producing copper mine in the Gaspé region of Quebec. And we are doing their community relations as well as the overall Cisco Metals investor relations. So, as I said, we know we're not losing, because we do seem to have, we've done a couple of public meetings up there. We call them town hall meetings, where we tell people what's going on. We do benefit from the fact that there was a past producing mine there. So many of the older folks remember it. The town is really economically depressed now since the mine closed in 1999. So the idea of it coming back, and the jobs coming back, and the prosperity coming back, for those who recall it, is obviously very, very positive. And then we're able to address some of the people who had recently moved to the region, who were not familiar with the mine operations, who were more concerned about, oh, is this going to affect the skiing? Is this going to affect the the ecotourism
Sure.
and the beauty of the region, really? So to address some of their concerns, we decided to form a collaborative committee with some of their experts, particularly when it comes to water, because as you probably all know, mining, watering and dewatering of mines is a very key element of any operation. And the past producing mine has an open pit that's been filled with water that will need to be dewatered before mining operations can resume. So we're looking at different options for that. But rather than just hiring a bunch of experts from somewhere else, we've said, okay, there are people who know the waterways here in the community. Let's engage them. Let's invite them to committee meetings and have those regularly, so that they also are informed about the project, but also can share their knowledge in the region and help us to put together something that ideally is going to please everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah. And that could be a moving target, right? What's going to please everyone, what's going to engage everyone, that
You're never going to
no,
please all the people, but I think the key is maybe they're not happy, but they might understand, right?
yeah,
So I think that's part of what why we try to work so hard on our messaging, is to make sure that that comprehension, that understanding is the end result. So
absolutely. And I think just being respected and being engaged can do an awful lot to bring people along and make them willing to understand, to sort of open their minds. And
yeah,
I'm guessing that this would have applicability to many phases of the mine site, like from sort of project and commissioning right through the operation of the mine and even closure and beyond.
yeah.
Is that fair to say?
That's another big step of our, informing and educating the public process is, they don't even know the steps towards getting to a mine, right? Like it seems,
Mm.
as soon as Osisko Metals announced that they had acquired the project, people were sending their CVs like, oh, when is the mine going to open? And they don't realize that, whether you like it or not, the fact of the matter is, in Canada, it's 5 to 10 years to go from, early exploration to potentially production. So that's been part of the process too, is, educating them and saying, okay, we're at this stage now. We don't even have a PEA out yet, but that's the next milestone. And then that allows us to see whether the project might be economic. And then we'll do some additional drilling, detailed engineering, and you guys know the rest. But, people don't understand that, because it's all sort of, I guess, in the past has been kind of opaque and it's not public knowledge. So that's part of what we do too, is, say where we are in the stages of the project, when you might expect that we might be hiring, and just kind of trying to, I won't say temper expectations, but at least allow people to understand what's coming and when there might be opportunities for them.
And I'm sure that that's so valuable as well for mining companies that are, very busy and trying to get the ore out of the ground and get it refined
Yeah.
and keep their employees safe and take care of business within their operations, that it's really a relief to be able to partner with you and your team that has such deep subject matter expertise in managing perception, sort of opening up transparency as well, and doing it in a very strategic way that is positive, giving some education and I'm guessing that that in itself is beneficial to the community around to understand what's going on at the mine.
I always think any education is beneficial, right? So the other thing that we like to do, because we do this sort of holistic communications, is ensure that websites, company websites are, aligned with what we're saying in the community. So we do have community pages on the websites, but also the websites in general just have to be, we have to explain what the company values are, details about the various projects, how to contact us, who are these people behind the company. So all that kind of, all those communications tools come into play when we're working with clients.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Kimberly, and sharing some of your story. Love the word play there as well with refined substance and how we refine substances in the mining industry as well. You're taking, information and refining it and making sure that it gets to the right people. So thank you
Well,
so much for being
thank
here,
you
and
so much
anyone
for
who's
having me, Erica. It
interested.
was an absolute pleasure.
Great.